Good afternoon, everyone. We have a special speaker here today. I like to make sure everyone pays attention to this individual. He's very good. He's a longtime resident of Fayette County. He's traveled all the way from Springersville, Indiana to come and talk to us today. He's performed at least 13 times at different individuals and different events. And I don't think they took him out on a stretcher or made him get out or whatever. So hopefully he'll be some entertainment for us. Everyone doesn't know this, but April is the National Comedian Month. I didn't know that till this morning. But we do appreciate Charlie Duncan coming today. And like I said, we appreciate everyone giving your full attention. And Charlie, here you go, bud. Where do you want it? Okay. I almost called you Charlie Davis, but it's Duncan.
Close,
right?
it's
Yeah.
close.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all. When I look around this room, I see nothing but untapped potential. I see potential in you and you. Oh my. The only way I can do that is to wear my underwear too small. I call my routine the Charlie Duncan One and Done Tour. There's two reasons I'm here today. Over the years I've had people tell me, you've missed your calling, you should have been a comedian. Well, my first reason of being here today is to prove them people wrong. No, I shouldn't have been a comedian. And the second reason I'm here today, I've been thrown out of everywhere else. I was born 65 years ago in a little town in Ohio. We were so poor, a neighbor had to have me. I was born cesarean, although it don't show, but every time I leave the house, I go out through the window. And if I go to a ball game, I got to sit in the C-section. We were so poor, at Halloween, Mom and Dad couldn't afford a pumpkin at Halloween. They made me stand at the window. I don't want to talk about the location of the candle. We couldn't afford a big Thanksgiving meal, turkey and big Thanksgiving meal, so what we would do is we'd wait till our neighbors had their Thanksgiving meal. We'd invite them over to our house and we'd take turns smelling their breath. Christmas, Mom and Dad couldn't afford to get me anything for Christmas, so every Christmas Eve night my father would go out behind the house and fire off a shotgun, come back in and say Santa Claus committed suicide. Although one Christmas I did get a little red wagon, and I pulled it around to the following Christmas when I got the wheels for it. Mom and Dad had 5 rooms of inflatable furniture. Every time the rent would come due, they'd let the air out of the furniture and they'd move. Sometimes they'd tell me where they went. A lot of times I'd come home from school to an empty house, but I always found them. I'd go down to the nearest liquor store and I'd wait for one of them to show up, then I'd follow them back home where they come from. When I was little, Mom couldn't afford a washing machine. So what she'd do, she'd go down to the edge of the river and beat our clothes on a big rock. Well, as luck would have it, our rock broke. So Mom went to the neighbor's house to use her phone. It was the same neighbor that had me 65 years ago. And used her phone, called a rock repairman. Well, we waited and waited. It took so long for him to show up, we named him Rock of Ages. When I was little, Mom and Dad couldn't afford to buy me a new pair of shoes whenever I wore out my shoes when I was little. Couldn't afford to buy me a new pair of shoes. So we couldn't afford to get new soles put on my shoes either. So what Mom would do, she'd go to the store and buy a box of pudding, whether it be butterscotch or vanilla or tapioca, and she'd take that pudding home and cook it up in a pan on the stove and let it set for 3, maybe 4 days until that film would form on top of the pudding, and she'd lay my shoe down and cut the soles of my shoes out of the film on that pudding. My mother invented soul food, never even got the credit for it. And in the wintertime, Mom would make the soles of my shoes out of the tapioca pudding because she said it would give me more traction. I never will forget as a child the words of encouragement my mother would give me. She'd look down at me with these words. I said, I'm over here, Mom. And she'd look down with words of encouragement and she'd say, "You have never failed to disappoint me and your father." She used to make me eat toothpaste sandwiches so I could eat and fight cavities at the same time. Had a little accident with Mom last week. She's doing better. I accidentally got her oxygen hose and her catheter hose mixed up. Yeah, like you've never done that before. But she's starting to recognize people and eat solid food. She's doing better. She withdrew me from school at an early age so she could homeschool me. But Mom's homeschool was a different kind of homeschool, not like today. Mom taught me out of the storybook that was called The Little Engine That Could, but Mom's version was called The Little Engine That Could But Chose Not To. And for extra credit, Mom taught me how to open a beer bottle with my teeth for extra credit. Mom even had a mascot for her homeschool. You know how some schools have a bulldog for a mascot? Some schools have a fighting warrior for a mascot. Mom's mascot for her homeschool was Orville Redenbacher. Mom didn't believe in higher education. Mom had the theory of higher education is what you don't know won't hurt you. I thought my father was an educated man. I thought my father had been to Penn State with a PhD. It wasn't Penn State, it was a state pen, and the PhD stood for post hole digger. He tried to do things around the house. He'd put in a TV dinner in the oven at 35 degrees for 400 minutes. Tried to put in a window fan one time, and he put it in backwards. He installed it to where the control knob was on the outside of the house, which wasn't too bad, but we lived on the 3rd story. He tried to put in a doorbell ringer one time, and he put it in backwards. He installed the doorbell ringer to where it rang all the time, and the only time it would actually stop ringing is when someone come to the door. When it quit ringing, we knew there was somebody at the door. I never will forget the words of encouragement my father would give me as a child. He'd look down at me, and I'm over here, Dad. He'd look down at me with these words. As soon as you turn 18, me and your mother's getting a divorce. And the only reason why we didn't get a divorce sooner, neither one of us wanted custody of you. My father had a premonition. You know how some people have premonitions that something bad's going to happen, there's going to be a death in the family. Well, my father was like that. My father knew exactly the minute that he was going to die. Of course, it was a judge that told him. So I thought, what would I do? If I knew when I was going to leave this earth, what would I do? So I thought, and this is what I think I'd do. With the last 5 minutes remaining of my existence, I would go to the phone booth down from my ex-wife's house. And that's how long ago I've thought about this. In the old days, they had phone booths. And I'd dial 911. I said, I need the police down here. I've come down here to visit my ex-wife, and she's threatened to kill me. I need police down here right away, and I'd hang up. And then when I'd see the police cars come around the corner, I'd run up on her front porch and die. Let her explain that. Be my luck, though, I wouldn't die and I'd get arrested for trespassing and false reporting. I have bad luck. I bought a $1 scratch-off lottery ticket and I scratched it off. It said I owed them $5. I'm the only person that's been arrested for stealing something that said free. I'm the only person that's been struck by a car and lightning in the same day. I recorded the Indianapolis 500 on the VCR and I played it back and a different driver won. I've never held a political position, but a few years ago I thought about running for sheriff. I was going to have my multiple personalities as a campaign committee with a campaign slogan, "You'd be crazy not to vote for me." And my credentials was going to be, I've watched the movie Walking Tall twice, but I'm not going to tell them twice because I don't want them to think I'm overqualified. Anybody here in the witness protection program besides Rosa? Sales calls. Sales calls. They will call you, even though you're on a do not call list, they'll call you at an inconvenient time. They won't take no for an answer. So I've come up with a couple responses for these salespeople that won't take no for an answer. So one morning I had this one salesperson keep calling. I told him I wasn't interested, and I'd hang up. He called 3 times in 45 minutes. I finally got enough of it. So this was my first response, and you can use this, but you've got to be careful who it is. Make sure it's who you think. So the phone rang, and I just grabbed the phone and picked it up without even looking, thinking it was a salesperson again. And I didn't even give them a chance to start their sales pitch. I just let in on them. So the phone rang and I grabbed it. "Thank you for calling the organ donor hotline. If you wish to donate a kidney, push 1. If you wish to donate a spleen, push 2. If you are a female wishing to donate your entire anatomy, don't push nothing, I'll be right over." Oh, hi, Mom. So the second response is when they call, and I'm figuring if they want to be stupid, I'll be stupid right back with them. They don't take no for an answer. So they called me and they said, is Charles there? And I said, "No, can I take a message?" "Well, when do you expect him back?" I said, "Well, with good behavior, 3 to 5 years. I don't want to go into details, but it involved a motel room, a monkey, and a 65-year-old prostitute named Sunshine." This obviously is not a phone. This is one of those devices that you put on the side of your tub. Mom won't miss that till she goes to get out of it. Jello. I'm afraid of Jello. I had an ex-girlfriend that could find more ways to violate Jello. She couldn't make just plain leave it alone Jello. She had to put things in it. Oh, it started out innocent enough with your miniature marshmallows, your sliced bananas. And one time she even put these little brown oblong looking objects in the Jello. She said they was milk duds, but I don't think they were. I didn't eat any. She even took a cheese grater and grated a bar of soap and put it in the Jello and said it was coconut. I didn't eat that either. And then it got out of hand. She put goldfish in the Jello. I said, "You put dead goldfish in the Jello?" She said, "They was alive when I put them in there." Then it got out of hand. She put a microphone from a 23-channel CB radio in the Jello one time. And then she put a remote to a garage door opener in the Jello, and we didn't even have a garage. She even went as far as to put the doorbell ringer in the Jello that my dad had put in backwards years ago, and it was still ringing. Even David Copperfield, the magician's going, "How'd she do that?" Let's see. Oh, Benihana. Benihana was in the news this week. It seems that Benihana, the restaurant chain, and Benny Hinn, the faith healer, is merging together. and they're going to start a new line of restaurants called Heel Meals. And what this is you can go in this Heel Meals restaurant with a cane, crutches, or stretcher and have a meal and get up and walk to your car. Amen. Humpty Dumpty was in news this week. He didn't fall, he was pushed. Mrs. Dumpty is being held for questioning. Mrs. Dumpty pushed Mr. Dumpty to his untimely demise because Mrs. Dumpty, too many Dumptys. They make this look easy on TV, don't they? Mrs. Dumpty pushed Mr. Dumpty to his untimely demise because Mrs. Dumpty found out that Mr. Dumpty was having an extramarital affair with a woman next door who turned out to be none other than the little old lady that lived in the chute, had so many children she didn't know what to do. Well, through further investigations, it was found out that through Mr. Dumpty's extramarital affair, there was a love child created. And through DNA testing, the love child turned out to be Dr. Phil. You can't make this stuff up. The word normal. The first two letters of the word normal is N-O because there's no such thing as normal. Normal is an opinion at best. It means something different to everybody. Even Mrs. Gump in the movie Forrest Gump even said, "What is normal anyway?" So my example of normal is, you go to a maximum security prison and you get 10 convicts that they're in there for everything except good behavior. You get 10 convicts, put them in a room. You get 11th convict, and say, "Come here, you see those 10 convicts in that room? Go in there and sit with them and talk with them, get to know them, and come back out." So about 5 minutes later, the 11th one comes back out from his visit. "Well, what'd you think of them?" He said, "Well, they seem normal to me." "Yeah, because you're one of them." So when you go home, you get your dictionary out, turn to the letter N, turn to the page in the dictionary that's got normal and rip that page out because there's no such thing as normal. Normal to some people is running through the house naked carrying a blender. But it's not plugged in. I didn't want you to think I was sick or anything. Avalanche. It's another thing I don't understand. A controlled avalanche. Out in the ski resorts, they have this group of people that's called controlled. They can control an avalanche. There's no such thing as a controlled avalanche. A controlled avalanche is about like controlled diarrhea. There is no such thing. Once both of them start, you better get out of the way because you don't have no control over either one of them. Now anybody can start an avalanche. You don't need jumper cables to start an avalanche. My question is the control of an avalanche. So they get this guy that's called an avalanche controller. And I'm thinking, well, let's see if this guy can really do it. First of all, he can't keep his kids in the backyard. He can't balance his checkbook. And he don't know where his wife's at half the time. And he's going to control an avalanche? I don't think so. So my theory on this is let's let this guy that claims to be an avalanche controller, says he's got control of an avalanche, let's put him to the test. Let's put him down at the bottom of this mountain where you got a horrendous mountain of snow charging down, tons and tons. The sound is deafening. So here's this little guy that's going to be at the bottom of the avalanche trying to control it. And I think it goes something like this. So picture, if you will, this little guy with these signs going to control an avalanche. He can't do it. It can't be done. I hate going to the doctor because he doesn't always want to give you a shot. Even as a child, I hated getting shots. I just don't like getting shots. I don't like needles. Well, they give you a measles shot when you're little. And then as life goes on, you go to the doctor, he wants to give you a shot. And then he wants to give you a flu shot. You go donate blood, they stick a needle in your arm. Seems like everybody's wanting to poke something in you somewhere. And you think I'd be used to this by now because my ex-wife has got a little Charlie Duncan doll that she sticks pins in. So you think I'd be used to it by now. Jury duty. I've never been called for jury duty, but I think I've got it covered in case they would happen to call me for jury duty. So I'm going to walk in the jury duty room, interview room, with a bandage on my head. And I'm going to walk in and before they can even get a chance to ask me my name, I'm going to do my best Forrest Gump. I may not be a smart man, but I know Roadrunner goes beep beep. And then I'm going to go over and walk and sit down for the interview. And I'm going to say, I can't do jury duty, I have a concussion. They said, well, Mr. Duncan, how did you get your concussion? I said, you're not going to believe this. But I was on the top deck of a ship that was crossing the ocean. And right when the ship was going to go underneath the equator, I accidentally raised up and hit my head on the equator, and I got a concussion in 5 different time zones. So if you walk into an interview room for jury duty, and you do your best Forrest Gump, and you go in with a bandage on your head saying that you got a concussion in 5 different time zones from hitting your head on getting a concussion from hitting your head on the equator, not only will they not pick you for jury duty, they will take you off the list, they will escort you to the door, and they will put you in a witness protection program so you can come down here and be with the rest of us at the Senior Center. One last thing, and we'll turn it over to our regular scheduled programming. This is a 1999 Connersville News Examiner. And I saved this all these years because I thought it'd make a good story, because on the front page it pertains to Smalley's Lake down here when Mayor Newhouse made a little park down there with fishing and picnic tables where you could go down and fish and have a picnic or whatever. Well, somebody went down there during the night, and this is the paper, Connersville News Examiner, that somebody went down Smalley's Lake during the night and pushed one of those portable toilets in the lake. Oh, this is a big deal. You can't see this, but there's a state police diver, there's the city engineer, there's the city police, and there's Mayor Newhouse that rhymes with outhouse. And can you imagine when he got that call, when the mayor got that call, said, you better get down here, there's a pooper in the pond. So the headlines read, and I'm not making this up, Portable John fished from lake. Well, I've made my own caption for this. Connersville cops crack, crapper, caper. Thank you.
I remember when that happened. They thought
Thanks, Charlie. That's very entertaining. We appreciate you coming over today, entertain us.
we got the call to go down there and
Just want to I guess, say we're gonna have bingo here in a little bit. So I do want to thank everybody for coming today, and like I say, for Charlie and for his entertainment. Let's give him another hand, please. Thank you, Charlie.